Senate leaders are tweaking the health care bill. Apparently, they're putting in an incentive for consumers to stay insured. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I was told that they're going to roll out a revised version of it today to try to find enough votes to pass it and get it passed this week. So when we get more details on this, we're going to let you know about that. I'm sure it's something they're covering over at the Fox News channel. We're joined now by Eric Bolling, of course, host of The Specialists on Fox News channel, and of course he's got a new book out called The Swamp. Eric, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me. A big fan of St. Louis as well. I threw out a first pitch at Busch Stadium one night. I think it was the week after Barack Obama threw one from an all-star mound. You guys are cool enough to invite me out there to throw a real pitch from the mound.
That real pitch.
Fondest memories.
Made it across the plate. Is that what you're saying?
I made it across. I think it was a low and tight fastball, low and inside.
You know, I enjoyed your first book because you kind of talked about what was behind the Trump movement, and I think it's kind of fitting that your second book is called The Swamp because Donald Trump is starting to realize just how difficult it is to drain that darn thing.
You know, that's how I started with the book. You're right. Yeah, the Wake Up America book was extremely successful, thanks to you guys. But it was let's try something. Let's wake up and try something new in D.C. Along comes Trump, and I'm watching. By the way, a big advocate of what he was selling, on the campaign trail for politicians. And I see the people just chanting, "Drain the swamp, drain the swamp." And there was a visceral connection between the people and Donald Trump, and he knew that he had to get to D.C. and drain a swamp. So I started doing a little research on what was going to entail. And I got to be honest with you, Mark, and I'm sure he didn't even realize either how deep and murky that swamp really is. It's like everything is for sale in D.C. Everyone, anytime a congressman or a senator shows up at a lunch or a handshake, there's something in it for them. So everything's got a string attached, a price tag attached. And I go through example after example of things that are done illegally and legally, both. But whatever it is across the board, it's murky, it's corrupt, some semi-corrupt or corrupt, and you certainly don't want it from your elected officials, and some of the stories will just blow your mind. It's great reading, by the way. I
can't wait. And, my suspicion is that people, maybe their biggest surprise is that it's not partisan. We see that from my point of view all the time. This is Democrats.
Halfway through the book, I realized that I'm getting both sides of the aisle in this. I mean, there's an amazing Nixon story in there about how he was trying to bribe people to get that national convention in the city that he wanted it, but it went further. So I sat down with Jack Abramoff. Now, if you remember Jack, I don't know how far back you go back with this stuff, but Jack was part of he got involved with the Bush administration, got to know a lot of people in the Interior Department. And what he did was he went and lobbied Native American Indian groups on behalf of them to get casinos on federal lands, and he arranged some things, sometimes illegally, and Jack ended up going away to jail for the better part of 4 years for what he had done. And he said, look, I wish I hadn't done what I did, but it's the way D.C. runs then, and it's still just as bad right now. And we went through a few things on ways that Trump can make the place better.
Well, I hope he's listening because it's got to be a daily struggle, and he tries to circumvent them with Twitter. I bet they're losing their minds this morning that he tweeted out that President Obama was basically guilty of obstruction of not doing something about Russia earlier.
Yeah, and one of the recommendations. It's funny you say that. One of the first recommendation, in fact, to Trump in the book is continue to tweet. A lot of people, even on my side, say that's crazy. Let's not have him tweeting. But I want him tweeting. I want him out there. I want to see what he's thinking. I want more transparency, not less. And I think that Twitter, when he hits 110 million people with one tweet, shows the world what he's thinking. And you're certainly not going to get the fair assessment of what he's all about or what's going on in D.C. from the mainstream media. So that is literally the first recommendation I have.
Yeah,
one of the other big ones is. The reason why I liked Trump from the beginning was he's a businessman, and he approached everything from a business mentality, which means if you go to D.C., you realize all the overlap and all the waste that you have. I'll give you a great example of this. Every single senator and congressman they all have an office, they each get anywhere between $1 and $3 million per year per representative to spend on their office. Now, it can include cars and rentals and food and water. They just have to attribute it to the office. Now, if you don't spend it all in a year, you're not going to get that plus an additional the following year. So what they're doing is they're just spending all of their allotted money this year just because they want to make sure they get the same allotment or more the following year. That's not good for the taxpayer. That's not good for us. They're wasting a ton of money. I mean, it's types of things like this that normal people like you and I, and frankly, I didn't know until I started researching the book.
Well, and the average person wouldn't even know to question that. They think of the swamp as backroom deals here and there, but it's embedded in the system.
Yeah, that's the legal swamp. The corrupt part of the swamp. And I go through this. There was a lobbyist who worked for the pharmaceutical company Roche, a French pharmaceutical, mind you, who was given a $50 million lobbying budget by the company. Now, he was taking that money and he was whining and dining Congress people for deals on patent approvals and whatnot. It got to the point there was so much back and forth going on that he was so deep that they started to loop him into some, like he was buying $2,000 bottles of wine for him and his friends. He had a beach house, a $3 million beach house. When they went through the investigation, they realized what he was up to, that they started to close those corruption loopholes on him, and he ended up committing suicide.
Wow. Well, what you get, the bottom line impression you get is that it's not something if Donald Trump was Superman, he couldn't drain this swamp in 4 years, and I doubt if he'd have the impact he wanted in 8.
No, and I think what's the upside of this is that his rolling back of Obama regulations has done such great things for the economy. You look at the stock market, you look at the job market, you look at the housing market, you look at business confidence, consumer confidence. Across the board, these economic numbers are pointing in the right direction, up. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, that's because of 7 or 8 years of Obama. No, it's not. Not at all. It's because investors and people who invest in their own money and they invest in their own companies and their own people are confident going forward that things are going to be better. That's why all these numbers are turning north. It had nothing to do with Obama. So with all that added upside in the economy, hopefully that gives him enough cred and gravitas to go ahead and drain the swamp as promised in D.C. One of the most important things to do is get the lobbyists out of the administration. Don't allow lobbyists inside the White House. And if you do, these lobbyists can't come back and work for the government, or they better not work for if they work for the government, they better not go to work for a lobbyist after that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So one question real quick on what's happened in over the course of the weekend. CNN has to go out and issue a retraction over what ends up being poor reporting and a false story about the president last week. Do you think when you combine that with some of the other things we're seeing here, that this Russian collusion story is going to start deflating even faster now?
I think it has to, because this shined the light on something we've been saying. I've been saying at 5 o'clock for many, many months, that they don't have all the money they're spending, 5-7 investigations, literally hundreds of millions of dollars spent on investigating Trump and his administration. Not one single iota shred of evidence linking him to be in collusion with the Russians, and no obstruction of justice. I'm just appalled that they continue to do it, spend our money like this. But you're right, that one rush to paint Trump or Trump transition official with a collusion story and having to retract it will go a long way to calming them down as it being hyper-aggressive, painting this picture that frankly shouldn't be painted at all.
Well, I hope so. That's Eric Bolling, of course, host of the Fox News Specialists. His new book is called The Swamp, Washington's Murky Pool of Corruption, Cronyism, and Really Strange Creatures, and How Donald Trump Can Drain It. Eric, thanks for your time.
Appreciate it. Hit it up on Amazon right away.
Awesome. Take care, buddy. Selling that book. All right, Eric Bolling there. Good to talk to him. And you can find out more about his book there on Amazon, of course, if you want to go look at it. First book was a good one. I'll tell you that. I enjoyed reading it. I've got it on my desk right now. So